John Felch here, and this is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing for the 13th of October 2019. Last week we had a little bit of everything going on the West Coast. We had fires going on, wildfires in many areas. We had a major blizzard over the upper Midwest. We have river flooding going on, and we had a post-tropical storm giving high waves and wind action over the East Coast. So a lot going on in relatively small parts of the country, but you add it all up and it's pretty active. So let's talk about all these and what to expect over the next week or two in this week's briefing. Well, you can see here the snow situation in the upper Midwest, basically all the way across the northern plains into the far upper Midwest. Elsewhere, relatively minor amounts of precipitation and fairly scattered type pattern. Now you can see where the circulation was with this system, this blizzard. Very strong winds around it. Blizzard conditions, 2 to 3 feet of snow in spots of North Dakota. And this time of year, that's going to melt. So we got to keep in mind that rivers are going to be running high, and we're already getting some flooding in those areas. So temperatures, as this front associated with that low moved through, dropped very drastically over the weekend. Right behind the front, temperatures dropped 20 to 30 degrees very quickly, and this was Saturday morning. Now this morning, Sunday morning, we take a look at it and we see these areas that dropped 20 to 30 degrees are about anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees warmer. So we're already modifying this air mass. So the real cold push is not going to last too long, and then we're going to moderate back up close to normal or even a little bit above normal. But we definitely moderated the humidity or the moisture, low-level moisture. Dew points are in the 30s. You can see here where it's pushed this moist air, it's pushing it south and east. 60 dew points are being pushed all the way down to the southeast coast. Everywhere else, really dry fall air, dew points in the 30s. So temperatures over the last week, unusually cold, which is a pretty persistent pattern now for several weeks in the northwest U.S. and persistently hot with record-breaking temperatures we've seen not that long ago over the southeast U.S. Now we did get the first freeze of the year. It's sort of running behind schedule parts of the Midwest, and now this is where we've had that first occurrence of 32 degrees, and that occurred with that cold air pushing through Friday and Saturday morning. So we continue with a very strong gradient between unusually wet conditions, wet soils. So if we get additional rain or snow in these areas, we'd expect enhanced runoff. We have very dry soils, drought conditions over the southeast and mid-Atlantic, parts of Texas. So in these areas, we would expect that rain could be beneficial. Quick look at the tropics. It's settled down for the most part. There are a couple systems to watch, sort of a post-tropical cyclone Melissa, and that brought the higher winds over the East Coast over the last 2 or 3 days. We have a system here, very unorganized, and in the Caribbean, and that's not going to do a whole lot, drifting sort of north-northwest. So overall, I don't see any impacts this week from tropical systems once the winds are quieted down from Melissa, and that's already occurring. So really no significant tropical impacts this week. As far as stream flow goes, we have a lot of high stream flow over parts of the Missouri and upper Mississippi, middle Mississippi River Basin. We have very low stream flows over the southeast U.S. at the current time. As far as the drought goes, everything's sort of tied together as you'd expect. The soil moisture, the rainfall, the stream flow, the drought. So we have significant drought impacts over Texas, southeast U.S., mid-Atlantic, parts of the Ohio River Valley, and the southwest U.S. Now I wanted to go past the last 2 weeks over the middle part of the nation and show you how much rain has fallen. Yellow is 2 inches, red is 5, so 2 to over 5 inches of rain. This is the boundary between the Missouri on this side, Mississippi on this side. So because of that, we have quite a bit of flooding going on the main stem Mississippi and Missouri, especially the areas in red, which is moderate flooding, or purple, which is major flooding. Now, once it gets down below St. Louis, or actually up in this area, it's going to attenuate, and still minor flooding all the way down to Cape Girardeau, but as it gets down into the lower Mississippi, remember that's been a lot drier, so that's attenuating as it goes further south. We also have coastal flooding going on the east coast, and even moderate flooding at a few spots, coastal locations. So there's our culprit that's caused all the weather over the last 2 or 3 days, actually more than that over the last week with the blizzard. So what's that going to do? Well, very quickly that pushes off and sort of merges in the jet stream. Once that pushes off, we have a bit of a ridging here, and then we begin to dig another trough. So we have sort of a wavy jet stream, not exceedingly so, but a wavy jet stream that's going to give us changing temperature patterns across the nation. And you can see these changing temperature patterns right here, with brown being warmer than normal, blue being colder than normal. And generally it looks like about after maybe 10 days or 12 days, so the middle of next week, if these models are right, and that's out there a ways, it looks like a pretty strong push of cold air that'll again dominate much of the nation. Now, if you look at the West Coast, where we've had the fires, you can see that warming up as we get through there into maybe week 2. So right now the fire danger has abated a bit, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. I should say new fire risk, but we'll have to keep an eye on that as we get into week 2. As far as precipitation, it looks like the areas this week to keep an eye on: the Pacific Northwest, coastal parts of Washington and Oregon State, and then right in here, right in this axis over the southeast U.S., and that's going to more than likely be a beneficial rain. There could be some issues because whenever you get 2 to 4 inches of rain, urban flooding, poorly drained spots, smaller tributaries, but for the most part, remember that's right in that drought, so that could be a very beneficial rain for that area. Your 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, and your 8 to 14 right here. 6 to 10 day precipitation, and 8 to 14 day precipitation. Okay, to round out today's briefing, let's look at our weather hazards expected over the next week. Well, first of all, we have our flooding going on. Our main stem river flooding will continue this week. We have the risk of heavy rainfall and even possibly of some snow, I guess, at the higher elevations over the western U.S., Pacific Northwest. We have cold temperatures moving in on the 14th through the 16th over the upper Midwest. And then we have the rain over the southeast U.S. early this week. So that's pretty much the briefing for the upcoming week, a fall week across the country with a variety of impacts. But like I said, they're for the most part somewhat isolated in geographic extent, not impacting large parts of the country. That's this week's briefing. Have a great week.